Hello and welcome to VT Spotlight. I'm Jerry Dixon, Village Theater's Artistic Director, and once again, thank you for engaging with us. For this special Spotlight episode, please join KIDSTAGE alumni and administrators Aaron Alonzo, Maurianna Zingarelli, and Joel Arpin as they discuss their evolving roles with KIDSTAGE and the idea of legacy and impact of their work in this amazing educational program. So, let's bring KIDSTAGE into the spotlight.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the virtual audience. On behalf of Village Theater and the KIDSTAGE staff, welcome to tonight's episode of Spotlight, sharing stories, creating connections. I am not Jerry Dixon, although I wish I was as cool as him, but I am Aaron Alonzo. I use he, him pronouns, and on a normal day, I am the KIDSTAGE production manager in our Everett location. But tonight, I get to be tonight's guest host for our episode of Spotlight. So thank you so much for joining us in the virtual room where it happens. Tonight's theme is called How Far I'll Go. And for me and our special guests, who we'll bring in a couple of moments, that takes on a variety of meanings. We're going to be discussing this theme through the lens of KIDSTAGE and youth education as a whole, and how our work interacts with each other, and at least amongst our panelists, who we'll bring in a few moments, we'll explore how that theme translated for us as former KIDSTAGE participants and now as KIDSTAGE staff members. And we're going to talk a little bit about like how legacy and the impact that we create and kind of paying it forward, and how all of those themes intertwine in this bigger theme of how far we went and how far our students can go in the future using theater and skills for theater and skills for life, as our KIDSTAGE mantra so brilliantly explains. So before I bring our special guests into this room, we've got a lot to cover tonight. So hopefully we can within an hour. Oh my goodness. But I do want to quickly embarrass them by sharing their bios, just so you get a glimpse of who these individuals are. So one of our guests is Mari Zingarelli. Right now, she is our KIDSTAGE Education and Outreach Manager in Issaquah. Mari, as I read through her bio word for word, has 12 years of teaching and facilitation experience and is deeply committed to racial equity in the nonprofit sector. With the mission to create inclusive environments and brave spaces, she has worked with over 15,000 students in the creative arts, and her passion for storytelling shows up in many other ways, including through film. She has worked on documentary projects in Europe, Africa, and North America, and Mari currently holds a BA in Peace and Reconciliation Studies from Chapman University. And then our second guest is my partner in crime, Joel Arpin. He is the KIDSTAGE production manager in our Issaquah location. Joel started his tenure with KIDSTAGE as a student and is proud to be a member of the KIDSTAGE staff. It is an incredible opportunity to give back to the program that inspired him so much in his youth, and hopefully encourage students in all aspects of theater. This is his 6th year with KIDSTAGE, and he graduated from Western Washington University, also my alma mater. Go Vikings! With a BA in Technical Management and Design. So it is my great pleasure and honor to bring in my good friends and my colleagues, Joel Arpin and Mari Zingarelli. Come on into the room!
Thanks, Aaron!
Oh gosh,
oh my gosh. We can now ditch the word for word script off to the side. How have you been, everyone?
Doing well. Aaron, I think you're amazing. I'm going to say it throughout this hour. And I do want to share, I'm the education manager for Everett, whereas Joel is in Issaquah. Oh, I'm pointing the wrong way. Who knows?
I know. These screens are backwards.
And Aaron, do you feel like you got to share enough about your bio, since you were saying Western is your alma mater? You also started here as a kid. Yeah, just want to make sure you got a little bit of that in there too.
Oh man, I appreciate that. Yeah, like I'll just keep shouting out to my alma mater of Western Washington University. Like Joel and I worked on many projects there. So probably throughout this evening, we will talk about our parallel experiences at the university level. But I greatly appreciate that. But thank you both for joining me in this wonderful, fun adventure as we talk about all things KIDSTAGE and how far I'll go, we'll go, our students will go, amongst all of those things. I also want to share with the audience that I see my colleagues here very often, but I think this is the first time that I'm actually talking with them that isn't work related. Like, Mari, I need this answer ASAP, or Joel, I have a question about this production schedule. This is nice to actually just talk. It's so nice.
It is. And it's still virtual, which is like wah wah, but you know, we'll do what we can.
We'll do what we can. All right, but you're ready to kind of dive into this? We've got some big
Let's
topics.
jump in.
Let's jump in. So we're going to start with introductions, of course. But in true Aaron fashion, we're not just going to call it introductions. We're going to call it This Is Me.
Wow.
Look out, because here I come. Right?
Hey.
And I'm marching on to the beat I drum. If anyone has not put it together, we are hardcore musical theater nerds. So
No.
there might be references to random lyrics and songs later in the show. We'll find out. But to kind of pay homage to Mr. Jerry Dixon, our artistic director, he sometimes starts these episodes with something called like, what's your hyphenate? So I kind of want to pay homage to that by doing that here. Mari, since you're kind of to my, I'm pointing to the right direction. On my physical left, but my camera right, I guess. Since you're there, I'm going to start with you first.
Great.
So what's your hyphenate? So Mari, if I were to say Mari Zingarelli, educator, teacher, program manager, innovator, filmmaker, what would you add?
Just extraordinaire on top of it all. No. I think that covers a lot of it, but lately I've been really thinking about my identities as like a mentor and an advocate. I kind of call myself a problem seeker rather than a problem solver, because while I do like solving problems, I really like finding problems and then solving them together.
That's a really good way to look at it, because otherwise, like, especially as like managers, we're like firefighters, right? Sometimes we just have to put out the fires, but sometimes it's also good to like seek out what could be smoldering, right? So that way you can address it.
Yeah.
Right?
And this year has provided so much of that. Like so much that's a necessity. And we also have, some of us, a little bit more time, and we're able to seek out those problems that we didn't have time for during normal stuff. So yeah.
Right. I hear that. Okay, Mr. Arpin, you're up. So if I were to say Joel Arpin, educator, actor, designer, and director, program manager, and Seattle sports aficionado.
I mean, I think that's taken a little too far, but you know, I'll take it.
Just take it. What would you add?
I mean, I got to go along with what Mari was saying. You know, mentorship is a big part of that. So mentor. I always sort of like crisis manager is always a big part of that. And then, you know, a little glimpse into the personal life, classic rock fanatic, I would say, and sci-fi nerd. I think that without getting too deep, that encapsulates who I am.
Yes.
I love that.
Very, very much.
Such a sci-fi nerd.
But it's like very specific sci-fi too.
It's true.
Right?
It's true. No Star Wars, no Star Trek, no thank you. I'll go deeper than that. Dune every day of the week.
I'm so glad we're getting the new movies. It's coming out.
Yes, me too.
It's going to be beautiful and amazing. Excellent. Great. So hopefully our audience kind of gets a bigger glimpse of who you are as individuals. I mean, I know who you are. You're both amazing individuals, but hopefully our audience can kind of get a sense of that too. So I'd kind of like to move on to our next part of our conversation called Gotta Find My Corner of the Sky from Pippin, right? From Pippin. This part of the conversation, I really want us to explore how the heck we are on, like, how did we find ourselves in a three-way broadcast phone call, right? And like,
I don't like that.
like, how did we find ourselves here, right? In the virtual world. No, but looking more at a macro level, like, how did I kind of want us to explore how we got to where we are today? As right now, we are KIDSTAGE staff members, part of the Village Theater family, but all of our paths might have been parallel at some point. They might have diverged in other ways, but we've all gotten onto a path that somehow got us to where we are today. So I kind of just want us to explore what that road to KIDSTAGE, I guess, is kind of like. Either of you want to kind of take a stab at that and like give us the sparkiest Spark Notes version of how you got from point A to point B. That's essentially what I'm saying.
Well, I think I'll jump in if it's all right.
Please do. I just wanted to sing some Julie Andrews. Ready, place to start. Yes, go Joel.
I think it's important to point out that all three of us started as KIDSTAGE kids. I know that was mentioned, but not only were we KIDSTAGE kids, but we were all Everett KIDSTAGE kids, which I think is pretty unique and exciting.
Me too.
And like, oh boy, oh man.
I cannot tell you how much fun it was to find that photo.
Oh, get that gun, Annie.
That was
Aaron, that was the first show that you and I did together ever.
Yes,
right?
That was how we met. I think it was 2008.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
We were definitely in high school. That was definitely high school. But yeah, that was Annie Get Your Gun. And that's how Joel and I met.
Yeah. But, you know, like as many kids, I started out wanting to be an actor. I wanted to sing. I wanted to dance. I wanted to perform. And I quickly learned that was not a skill set that was going to get me particularly far in life. But I learned a lot from it, and I loved it so much that I wanted to look for a way to continue to make theater a part of my life. And so I started experimenting with backstage work. And I know Aaron mentioned earlier, but, you know, I did directing, I did lighting design, I did sound design. I tried all sorts of different things. This picture right here is from Summer Independent that I did the lights for, Into the Woods, right?
Into the Woods.
Aaron, and you worked on that one as well, right?
Oh my God, yeah, that's right. I was the stage manager for that show. Yeah, that was.
The amount of shows we've done together.
Oh man, I should really go back and I should have counted before this. It's like
we should have thought about that.
We've worked on blank, number of shows, and that's in a variety of ways too.
Yeah. But, you know, skipping through all of the nuts and bolts of things, I went off to college, decided that I wanted to pursue management, took a year off of school, went to work at Disney World. I'm also a Disney fanatic. I didn't mention that in my bio.
Yeah.
And there I really discovered the passion for management. So I came back and decided to do an internship in our Issaquah location for production management, and fell in love with it. And I was fortunate enough to, just as I finished that internship, the person who was working in that job, Brian Newell, Missy Brian, I hope you're doing well, decided to move on to bigger and better things, or maybe not better, but bigger things, different things. And Susie asked me to interview, and I did, and boom, here I am. And I've been loving it ever since. So, it's been quite a ride, and I love it.
How long did you know that you wanted to do kind of exactly what you're doing?
I don't know how long I knew that's what I wanted to do, but as I played with all the different elements of this industry, I realized that I loved them all, and I wanted to have my hands in every little pot.
Right.
And so I think eventually when I discovered what could get me that as a career, that's what drove me to this. So, I love it. I can't complain, right?
And one of the coolest things about production management, I mean, speaking to the choir, because I do the same thing with you, right? But one of the cool things about this job is that you have your fingers in all the pies, right? It's like you don't have to be a master at being a lighting designer or being a director, but you can use your working knowledge of each of those departments to help shepherd and to help frame the work that your designers and your directors can do, and you still feel like you have a little bit of artistic ness in that conversation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But Mari, what about you? How did you end up here?
Yeah.
Well, yes, my story is funny because it feels like I've always been here.
Right.
So for anyone who doesn't know, I feel like I talk about it all the time. There I am, right? I started doing theater when I was 5 with Sky Theater, which you can see all of us repping the shirts here.
Those are amazing shirts.
I promise I'm wearing shorts under that shirt. And I wasn't like a very, very weird child. I also love how we're all coordinating our white sneakers. I bet that was a conversation.
That had to have been. It had to have been.
Yeah, so I started with Sky Theater in Stanwood when I was itty bitty, and then at some point, Sky Theater merged with KIDSTAGE. I don't know, sometime when I was in middle school, and so yeah, it feels like I've been here forever, forever. And let's see, I loved theater forever. I can't remember ever thinking I'm gonna be an actor. But whenever I was on stage, I flipping loved it. Whenever I was in rehearsals, whenever I was taking classes, I am.
Look at this one.
In Everett at the Everett Performing Arts Center. Yeah, so I always loved it. I definitely got that creative spark when I was just an itty bitty kid. And I started just taking leadership and teaching, leading games and activities from a pretty young age. So It was not a surprise when around the time I was 18, I started teaching for KIDSTAGE. And then every summer I would come back from college because I was doing college down in California, and I would teach as many summer camps as they would let me for like the whole summer. And I would, be a participant in summer independent productions or supporting it or whatever. So just really like as much time as I could have. And I started seeing a different side of myself as I transitioned from being more in the spotlight on stage to supporting other students find that spotlight. And it just really clicked for me. I've always loved working with kids. And so I've been teaching with KIDSTAGE for 13 years. Pretty wild. And yeah, I came back to Seattle after college because somehow I got sick of the beautiful Southern California weather and wanted to be back here. Not sure what was going on with me there. And I came back and I just really dove deep into the arts education nonprofit field. And and then ended up having an opportunity kind of similar to Joel. Janet was transitioning from Everett to Issaquah, and they needed an interim education manager like ASAP. Enough time to do a full interview process before the summer. And Janet infamously said, Mari could do this job. Just thought of me randomly. And so I was called in to be interim for probably 4 months, and then was asked to be part of the more formal interview process. And they loved me. They really loved me. And I was so glad.
I remember the day that I think it was the day that it was made official, because you did it in such an actory way. Like, you walked into my office and I think we were in the middle of like tech rehearsals for, I think it was like one of our fall teen select shows. This was like 2016, I think. And you were just like so nonchalantly like, what you working on? And I'm like, I'm like fighting 10 different fires and trying to put on a show and stuff like that. And I think you eyeballed, we had like a huge box of like our show sweatshirts and t-shirts. And we usually put the entire KIDSTAGE staff on the backs of like their names on the backs of those t-shirts. And at the time we had put yours as like interim education and outreach manager. And you like made a beeline for that title. And she was like, I think you need to change interim to permanent. And I was like,
I'm so extra.
It was so extra, but it was the best way to reveal. I was like, we're going to be legit colleagues. So it's the little things, right?
Yeah, it's been so fun. Okay, how about you, Aaron? What's your journey?
Oh man. Okay. So my artistic, I'll try to sparkness this. I'll try to keep this tight. Once upon a time, I did not want to be in the arts whatsoever. The career that I wanted to go in growing up was as a commercial airline pilot. So you can ask
in the way.
This was part of it for sure. But like, if you ask any of my relatives, they will know that I get so excited going to the airport. So like, if I'm going to open up a can of worms, but if anyone needs like a chauffeur to the airport, or if you need to be picked up, it's so much fun for me. just saying it out loud. You know, I will risk being in traffic on I-405 to take you to SeaTac Airport. So, but my artistic journey in theater started when I was in high school, freshman year. At the time, this was when I started to find my way in the arts. I was really interested in filmmaking, and I still am. Like you both know, like I'm a hardcore film nut. I don't
know anyone who knows more about film than you.
Nope.
I know the most random facts that no one would ever care about movies, you know? So it's like that sad. But at the time, I was like hoping for like some behind the scenes opportunities, right? Because being a filmmaker, Mari, as you know, it's a lot of, you know, coordinating with crew members and actors and all the things behind the scenes. So I was trying to find an opportunity to do that in high school. And I found the drama department at my alma mater, Kamiak High School. Go Knights, go Knights. And they still do have a very robust performing arts program. And of course, they're always looking for new students to come work with them. I'm like, oh, okay, this is kind of familiar. You know, there's some lights and you have to like position your set and there's blocking and staging and all of that. And I thought it was just going to be like a one and done thing. But, you know, when you get bit by the theater bug, there's no going back. Yeah. And so all throughout high school, I ended up working on almost always behind the scenes. So like I got to work as a run crew member, working with the lighting team, and eventually graduated into stage management and being an assistant stage manager and a stage manager. So kind of the big fun boss. So kind of the reasons, Joel, that you love production management, I love stage management because you're in the thick of it, but you know, like trial by fire, right? So it's like the directors are giving you information and your actors are giving you information and you have to disseminate that information to your crew to get the scene change done in 30 seconds. And of course it's high school. So like everyone is just like cranky all the time. So like that was where that spark really happened. And so I was like, okay, I have to do this, or theater has to be in my life. So then went to Western, got to collaborate on a lot of shows with Joel, which was super fun. I, for a very brief moment, had considered putting my theater major as a minor because I wanted a real job, right?
Wow.
I walked in to freshman year of college thinking I was going to major in communications. And then
You.
what?
How could you?
I know, but let's just say I went on the right path because at the end of freshman year, I was like, I'm ditching the comm major. But then, yeah, I got to work on a lot of shows. You know, Western has a fairly robust theater program. You get to do a lot of, you have the opportunity to do a lot of shows, especially behind the scenes. So like working as a stage manager, there's always a show that needs a stage manager, right? So, you know, like working on the big main stage shows and, you know, the smaller independent, you know, student produced $50 budget shows, like we did them all. And then after I graduated, I was thinking that like, all right, I'm going to be a stage manager. Eventually I'm going to make it to Broadway, be an equity stage manager, work on Wicked, life will be great, right? And then that did not happen because our wonderful like director of youth education and community outreach, Katie Nickerson, out of the blue emails me and says like, hey, we have this position in Everett, the KIDSTAGE production manager position. We think you would be great. Like if you're interested, here's the job description. And I was like, what? Wait, no, why? Like I want to go touring around the world and do all these shows. But you know, the worst thing that can happen is that they offer to me and I say no, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, this is cool. Went through the application process. The funny thing is most of the people on the interview panel were people who I like worked with when I interned at KIDSTAGE, right? When I worked on all of these shows. So it's like, I knew many of these individuals. And then one thing led to another. And then I'm like, oh gosh, they're offering it to me. And it took me like a week to like decide whether I wanted this job or not. Cause I'm like, do I want to stage manage shows or do I want a full-time job in theater in my like degree? Like how
Like doesn't exist. You know?
Yeah. And so one thing led to another and I was like, sure, why not? And the funny thing is production management is very much in like the career trajectory of of a stage manager. Like, I know so many now production managers who were stage managers. So I was like, okay, I see myself doing this in 15 years. Not now.
Right.
But now, but looking back on it, I'm like, I don't think I want to do anything else.
Now it is, right?
You're so good at it. And I think that's the same for like all three of us, that we were given these opportunities to quite literally run the show at pretty young ages, mostly because we had such a firm connection to the theater already, and because we learned a lot of life skills from KIDSTAGE. And to be given that opportunity so young means who knows how far we'll go.
Very, very smooth. But yeah, like that's one thing that I think about all the time, and I'm sure you both do. It's like how amazing is that you know, we grew up in this program in some variety, right? Whether as an actor or a writer or a designer, director, right? And we then found our paths that are now parallel right here, right now. Like we get to work on theater. We get to, you know, interact with so many amazing families and students, and seeing how passionate they are about theater and the arts. It's like, that's kind of why we do what we do, which is such a, I feel like it's like partially a cop-out answer, but that is the reason we do what we do, because they're so excited.
For the children.
For the children.
Well, and I've also been, oh, sorry, you go.
No, you please. Go.
I was just going to say, what I've been thinking about when we were giving our little Spark Notes is how so many students are like, they often covet our jobs, but particularly Aaron and Joel's, because it's like, they're thinking, I love theater. I know that, you know, being a famous Broadway actor, maybe the statistics are kind of difficult, but how can I do theater forever and make a good living out of it? And they see these jobs and they're like, that's it. And I hope that some students are watching, or they might watch this at some point, because I know that the three of us spend quite a bit of our time talking to students like that, sharing where we come from. You know, Joel and Aaron totally went to college for theater and had tons of theater experience there. For me, it was totally different. As Aaron shared, I had a completely different degree. And what I'm doing at KIDSTAGE now makes me feel like I could really run the figurative show anywhere, right? Like, it feels like I could do anything, whether it's related to theater or not. Like, I'm still getting life skills from KIDSTAGE. And for anyone who keeps hearing me say that and they're like, why does she keep saying life skills? Our motto at KIDSTAGE is skills for theater, skills for life. So it's kind of ingrained into me.
And it's sort of a motto that you just adapt for your own.
Yeah,
you know, it's impossible to escape.
Yeah.
So.
And at least, again, I can only speak on behalf of me, but like one of the things that I get so excited with, especially when I'm working with students in this profession, in this position at this moment, is that you get to see these students so excited, so passionate, right? And they don't necessarily need to, you know, be the next Audra McDonald, right? Like, of course, we want to cultivate that, you know, that excitement and that drive, if that's really what they want to do. But we also get just as excited when, like, you don't necessarily become an actor, but you can take those life skills that theater can teach you and transfer those skills in a plethora of different ways. And I wish I could rattle off, you know, some examples, but, you know, we know students who no longer, you know, actively, you know, act in shows regionally, you know, community theater, whatever, but they have those skills and they have the appreciation of theater that they can then take for the rest of their lives. And how cool
I always think my brother is a great example.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Like, we're always talking about Joey, but like
he's not here. He's not here, so we can talk about him.
We can talk about it. His ears will be burning tonight. But yeah, he started, I mean, he did as much shows at KIDSTAGE as I did, if not more. He was in that Into the Woods that Joel was part of and Aaron was part of. But yeah, he then chose to go into graphic design and worked at Pinterest. And now he's working at Headspace, which is a huge app. And he always talks about how his theater background made him who he is. He gives presentations at work or like when he's in the job interview process, and always ties it back to theater. And so we get to know that this cool kid, I mean, I love him, so I'm biased, but we think he's pretty cool. We get to know this cool kid responsible for changing a lot of how humans all over the place are interacting with this huge app like Pinterest or Headspace.
Yeah.
And we get to know that, yeah, like he's got similar shared values because he started with KIDSTAGE.
Right. That's actually a really great segue because we're kind of starting to like talk about different stories and stuff. Yeah. So I want to kind of get us into that. So this next segment is called Hundreds of Stories. Oh my gosh. Think of the hundreds of stories we will share. It's from In the Heights, everyone. Mine and Mari's like absolute favorite musical.
Number one.
I think for me, it's number 2.
Over Newsies. You can't beat Newsies, Mari.
Oh,
yes.
I'm clutching my pearls.
Newsies might make an appearance later. We'll see. But I kind of want to like hear from both of you. Like, we all have amazing stories from theater, regardless of whether it's at KIDSTAGE or in high school or whatever. But I kind of want to pick your brains and see what your favorite memory or memories have been while working at KIDSTAGE. It doesn't have to be like a show. It could be like an experience. You know what I mean? Yeah, like that's kind of a big question. And we've been in this job for at least 4 to 5 years. And that's a lot of classes and a lot of shows and a lot of experiences within that. But yeah, does anyone feel so brave to like start us off?
I'll start us. Because I'm in like a giggly mood because I'm having a lot of fun talking with you guys. So the ones that are coming to my mind are when things go wrong, as they do.
As they do.
So when I was thinking about my favorite memories, I was thinking about like this through line, like I've talked about, of this creative spark. Aaron was talking about like getting bit by the theater bug. And so I have just so many vivid memories from when I was a really small kid all the way through now of either me feeling that creative spark over and over and over again, or seeing it happen in other students that I'm working with, or, you know, fellow actors when I was a kid, all that. So I just want to share a couple. There's one that I love. When I was in 8th grade, I played the Cowardly Lion in, you know, that one show. And that one show. And fun note, Caitlin Kinnunen was the Dorothy to our adorable group. She's
Mari, who is Caitlin Kinnunen?
She is a Tony-nominated actress. There's us.
She is.
Oh, you're so adorable.
Nicely done. That was good timing, Kevin. Thank you. Yeah, so we were in that one show where I was the Cowardly Lion, and she was Dorothy. And there was this scene where the flying monkeys come in and need to grab the Tin Man. The Tin Man was played by a girl, and so we called her the Tin Ma'am. And they flew in, literally flew in, because we were doing that, flew in, grabbed her, and somehow her tinsel wig was yanked off accidentally.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Gasp. And, you know, we're middle schoolers, and we're like,
what do we do?
If anyone watches TikTok, it was that moment of, oh, no. Oh, no. Anyways, and so, but what I love is that by 8th grade, I already had so many years of theater under my belt that I just took center stage and in my most Cowardly Lion persona, just started riffing, just started improvising, talking about who knows what, telling funny stories. I had the audience rolling in their seats so that my fellow actors could figure their stuff out behind me. And it just makes me think how, like, with theater, I really do feel like I can manage a lot of crises just because of the quick thinking that you have to do from all that experience. So that's just a fun one that came to my mind. What about you guys?
Oh man, cool. I mean, Aaron, your topic title, Hundreds of Stories, like there's so many stories to pick from, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and I don't know if I could pick like just one. But like, I just think, you know, going back to like, how did I end up here? Like the very first summer stock, which was really the first full show that I got to work on, was the show that we did, Peter Pan. And so I am this fresh out of college kid walking into this position of having, you know, like I said, having my hands in all these different pots, being in charge, and we're doing Peter Pan and we're flying children in the air.
Happy first year.
Oh man, it was blew my mind. Like I never thought I would be doing that. And it was so much fun and it was such a challenge. And I got over with and I was like, whew, nothing could be as challenging as that. We're never going to have to do a show that's as big as that again. Next summer rolls around, and we decided we were going to do School of Rock. And School of Rock has 4 children under the age of 14 who are playing instruments live on stage. And so you take it to one step, and then you take it to the next step. And no matter what we do, we're always pushing ourselves and challenging ourselves. And they create great experiences. And I think of School of Rock, and we had one of our students, Tyler, who was the young kid who played the guitar. And this year, he's graduating high school, and he is one of our writing students in our writing program.
Right.
And he is writing music, and that's what he wants to do, is go on and write. And he discovered that through this program, which that's what's so special about this program to me, is how it inspires students and shows them that they can do whatever they put their mind to.
Right. Yeah.
And I love that. And I love that faith was put in me. And I hope to put that faith in my students and show that I put my faith in them, that they can achieve things just like I did. So,
confidence. To this day, I still have not found it.
Yeah, right.
I don't believe that for a second.
You hide it well.
Let's just agree to disagree. No, but I think Joel, you hit it right on the nose. It's just like being able to see kind of the spark in their eye, right? Like when they finally get it, oh, that's something I can do.
Yeah,
I didn't know I could do that before. Those discoveries are so neat.
Or like watching them walk out on stage and be proud of the work that they created, that they're not performing in. Yeah. And feeling the same passion for that project that we feel when we watch them perform, right, is so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I think KIDSTAGE does a great job at providing that sense of ownership for anyone who works on the shows, anyone who really does anything with us. We're always working on how to give the students autonomy and feel like they're part of the community and they're part of the product.
But Mari, I'm also glad that you shared that, because like looking for, I know we've been kind of talking a lot about productions, but just thinking about, the department that you supervise, like the classes, I love it when I get the chance. It's not often, but when I do get the chance to watch like a final demo, whether that's, after Saturday classes or, an institute final demo, just seeing the A to B progression but seeing how much fun they're having within that, but then also B, seeing those discoveries, like sometimes as they happen, like, oh my gosh, I've got this tap dance. Oh my gosh, like how cool are those discoveries, especially for students who take our classes? Like it's so clear when that excitement and that passion really seeps through, right?
Absolutely. And so many of our students, they get that first sense of the spark through our classes, what we call our recreational programming, where you don't need to audition, you don't need to be able to belt through the roof already. Like you're just learning how to do this, and we're able to take them under our wing and give them the space to take risks, take creative risks, which is just so huge. Right. Try new things, collaborate. I mean, take risks. I'm going to say it again because it's just so big. It's such a huge part of that growth. And and then students who, we have so many students who I'm already seeing following mine or our trajectory of starting with classes at such a young age and moving through, going then into institute, then into our productions, then maybe realizing it is behind the scenes for them. So then they start doing our internships or our apprenticeships. There's just so many pathways here at KIDSTAGE to discover that love of theater and keep it going. It's really beautiful.
Yeah. Those are all really good memories. Oh man.
Do you want to share any, Aaron?
Oh, it's like Joel said, it's kind of hard to pinpoint, especially when you do 5 or 6 shows a year multiplied over 5 years, right? That's 25 shows worth of super cool memories. I think for me, if I were to holistically look at this, I think my favorite memories have been every time, again, speaking for the Ever program more specifically, is when we can push the boundaries of not only the types of shows we can do, but the stories that we can tell. I mentioned earlier in the Heights, that show was oh my gosh, Kevin, where did you pull that? I did not give that to you. That's amazing. But that show I hold to such high regards, not only because it's such a beautiful musical, but just how monumental that production was in the world of theater. And especially being able to have the opportunity to give that opportunity to students to not only tackle an amazing Lin-Manuel Miranda show, but to tell a story that isn't of the dominant culture.
Right.
Right. And it's such a cool show because there's so many different storylines that are linear and non-linear. Some are very linear. Others are just kind of like middle of a moment. But all these stories intersect, and it shows these different cultures and these different, upbringings and how they all fit into the, American experiment, right? Like the American story. Just think about that show as an example. Like one of the storylines that I identify with in that show is Nina Rosario's. So for those of you watching at home, you probably know this show too if you saw Village's production a couple of years ago. But Nina Rosario is a first generation college student, and she finally goes to college, goes to Stanford of all schools, and then we find out in the events of the show that she drops out because of a variety of reasons, pressures, financial situations, the works, and then seeing myself in that character, and then seeing how my parents appear in that storyline as Nina's parents, and seeing specifically like the dad, Mr. Rosario, Kevin, saying that I will not be the reason that my family can't succeed. And he goes through this whole journey in his song about I will do everything it takes to make sure that my family can succeed, no matter the cost. And I'm like, Dad, did you write this show? Like, excuse me while I empty out my Costco, box of Kleenex, right? So it's not only being able to push the boundaries of, not pushing the boundaries, but uplifting and amplifying those different types of stories and being able to tell these stories in a different way. Because another show that really rings with me was our production of Les Mis 2 years ago.
Right.
Oh my goodness, Kevin, on fire with these photos. Yeah, that production was really exciting to work on too, because the entire production team, we knew from the get-go that we did not want this to be a traditional, quote unquote, version of that show. How do we make this show that is relatively dated, 19th, revolutionary France? How do we make the story not only ring true today, but how can we make it a commentary on what happened before, but also what happens today, right? And one of the ways that we did that was, it's like we kind of threw traditional casting norms out the window, I don't want to say a risk, but it's non-traditional, right?
Non-traditional for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And one of the examples are the student revolutionaries we saw in that photo. They're in the script. They're written as white passing males who are who are wanting to revolt for very good reasons. They want their voices to be heard. They want their equal and equitable rights for everyone, right? They feel like they're being thrown under the bus by the government. They want an equal and fair share, right? But how do you translate that 19th century into the 21st century? So it's like, well, why don't we cast these revolutionaries as the community that we see today? So they're not just male identifying students, they are female identifying students, they are non-binary students, they are students who identify as white, who identify as people of color. Like Angel Ross, who is the leader of this revolutionary group of students, was female identifying, which was kind of our way to say that women create revolutions.
Ooh, I like it.
They cause good change in the world when women are in leadership positions. Like, who'd have thought? Yeah. So it's I'm starting to ramble, but it's those moments where we can really push a little bit more on how we can tell these stories, as well as the stories that we were telling in the first place.
Who lives, who dies, who tells your stories?
Who lives, who
Like,
dies.
once we get to the conversation about legacy, that's exactly what I want to be talking about. Yeah.
Well, why don't we go there? I think that's a very natural segue. And of course, Joel mentioned my all-time favorite musical, and that's what this next segment is called. It's called Carrying the Banner. We'll all be out there carrying the banner, man to man. And the reason we're calling this segment Carrying the Banner is because we want to carry that legacy, right? Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the topic of tonight's theme, is that we, between the three of us, whether we kind of see it, like on the surface or not, like we are cultivators of a legacy where we had the opportunity. Mari's like, whoa, that's deep. Where we get to cultivate a legacy where we were students who participated in this program. And now in our own cool, unique ways, we're paying it forward in our own way by like sometimes taking over positions of our mentors, right? But then also, I think, Mari, you mentioned it, we get ownership. We have the opportunity to have ownership of these programs that impact so many students and so many families. And we get to kind of be along for the ride. And like, yeah, I'm starting to like trying to figure out what the question is, but it's the idea of paying it forward in some fashion in our own ways, right?
No, absolutely. And we love all of our programs that we offer, and I've never been silent about the two programs to me that really spoke to me, right? Summer Independent, which is the program that Aaron and I did together many times over.
Many a time.
That really gave us, that experience of what it's like to be backstage and to be in charge of a production. But also our KIDSTAGE Originals program, which I mentioned earlier, and watching our students drive that story forward, right? Create the stories that they want to tell, and be in charge of crafting that.
Right.
And shameless plug, you should come see Festival in March. We got 4 new stories this year.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
But it's so cool to see the stories that they come up with. I think back to a couple years ago when we had 6 female identifying writers who chose to write a story about World War II, and they wrote an all-female cast. And speaking of stories that we don't hear very often, they were like, we want to hear more about the Japanese internment camps of World War II. And we want to hear about the women who stepped up into power, stepped up into these roles of these jobs, and then had that stripped away from them again when the men came home from war. And that was a story that was important and they were passionate about. And then we had the lovely Jess Spencer, Village Theater's casting director, come in and direct our 2nd year of production. And it's just such a cool experience to see all of that come together and see them driving these issues and being passionate about these stories and sort of, in a way, being able to take a back seat and sort of let them drive the car.
Right.
It's amazing.
It's so funny that you said that, because I was literally about to be like, I'm having this thought that so much of what we do and what we need to do is giving the reins over to folks who either that's the next generation or folks who don't often have as much of a leadership position in the very white-centric musical theater world.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, if I'll just kind of jump in on that, because when I was thinking about legacy ahead of time, it's exactly what you're talking about, Joel. Like, I hope that part of my legacy is at KIDSTAGE is building towards musical theater being for more than just white people. I mean, I was going to say white hetero people, but I don't even know if that's accurate, right? But like specifically white. I want to start seeing more musical theater shows that represent the global majority. And for anyone who doesn't know what I mean by that, that's just a fancy way of saying people of color, like non-white people.
Yeah.
I want to see more cultures represented like we got to see in the Heights. And I want to see students find that creative spark and realize that they can be not just actors, but they can be the directors and the producers and the writers themselves. And I think that's what's so cool about what KIDSTAGE does is, like we were saying, like all the different avenues. We're not just trying to build Broadway stars. We're trying to, I mean, I think that especially in the last few years, our KIDSTAGE staff is trying to change the culture of theater.
Yeah.
It definitely feels like it. It's daunting.
It is super daunting, but like it's not just the 11 of us who are like KIDSTAGE staff. Like it's our teaching artists and it's our production teams and it's our students. Like we are collectively trying to change the culture. Yeah, it's just huge. And I was thinking about what do the three of us do? Well, it's so important that we're changing the culture happens through shifting who is in leadership. Who are we hiring as our teachers? Who are we hiring as the people, the role models for our students, and also access, both financial and physical access to our programs, which we're continuously trying to figure out how to make our programming more and more accessible. And for anyone who doesn't know, we have a very robust scholarship program. We offer, 25, 50, 75, 100% off of some of our programs. I mean, all of our programs. So we're always trying to figure that out. If we could have a KIDSTAGE bus, I think that's the next thing. We're like, we need to have a school bus that transports students to our theaters, which is cool because that's kind of what's nice about right now is that anyone with a device and some internet can join us.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that. Yeah, like when I was thinking about this question, like one thing that came to mind was that yes, we are unable to be in the physical room where it happens, where we can, be together socially, hang out, create art together, right? Tell stories together, experience stories together. Yes, we can't do that right now. But one of the great things, if anything, about this online world is that, at least in the transportation aspect, Mari, that you were bringing up, the barriers are gone. Like there are some other barriers in terms of like technology and like whether your internet is reliable, but you can have students participate from almost anywhere. Theater. And theater, yes, in its very nature is supposed to be something that is experienced collectively in a room together. But as we've proven over the last year and how, the theatrical community as a whole has proven in the last year, that you can still have that sense of community and belonging and still tell stories through this little screen window thing. Like how cool is that?
It's possible.
It's possible. It's possible. Yeah, and something that also kind of rang to me is that in the work that we collectively do, and of course, with our teaching artists and production teams and other staff members, it's not about the end product. Of course, we want to have a really polished final demonstration, right? I'm gonna belt this whatever high note in Defying Gravity for my grandparents to love forever, right? And the goal of producing a show is to produce the show, right? But it's so much more than that in the work that we do. It's not about the quantity of things that we can do, it's the quality. So it's the depth of these types of relationships that we want to build, not only amongst our participants, but in our greater community, right? Like being able to really foster and deepen those relationships with our students, with our directors and artists and teaching artists, and it goes on and on. I'm starting to ramble, but you get it.
Parents, donors, and schools, and teachers who don't teach for us, but teach for the schools, and all of that stuff. It all comes together, right?
Yeah.
Yep. It's absolutely. And the process, you can tell when a show that you go see at KIDSTAGE has been so juicy and so about the process, because the kids' joy and, like we were talking about, the sense of responsibility and ownership is so apparent throughout the whole experience when you're sitting there in the audience. It is palpable. And you go and see these shows and you think, I'm not so concerned about the future anymore. Like, these kids are incredible.
Yeah.
And so it's absolutely about the process. And I think we have just such an incredible roster of teaching artists and directors and choreographers and music directors who are they're the ones who are on the ground with our amazing students.
They are in the trenches doing a lot of this work, right?
Absolutely. And we are nothing without them. Like, let's just put that out there. We're nothing without them. And to see, especially like in my 5 years here, how many are so fully committed to being process oriented, working on community building rather than spending an extra. I mean, like, let's spend 30 minutes of rehearsal getting to know each other and feeling comfortable.
Yeah.
What a concept. But you see it in the end. Like, you see that connection in the end. It's so visible. So we at KIDSTAGE, it's just like, it's so important. You are doing community building, or there's the door. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And because not only just like thinking about theater, for example, it's like, of course, when you're thinking about theater, you want everyone to be a community, right? Because you're going to be working with them for multiple months. Right. But it's that personal growth too. Like, if you like, what's the point of theater where you can't, share a unique, fun experience, but also be able to bring yourself into that experience as you, if no one else knows who you are, right? So having those small moments of community building, icebreakers, this is me type of barrier breaking, discussions.
Yep.
Like, that's the whole point, right?
Right.
Yeah. And like, thinking about kind of holistically as I valiantly attempt to wrangle this meeting up. I know, we're almost there. Like, we have been, I don't want to toot our own horns, but we can kind of toot our own horns a little bit. We've been very successful, like, not only in this last year, but I feel like in the last couple of years, to be able to, yes, be very proud of the end products that we've done, but really look at the process of, like, students taking these classes 8 weeks, out of a quarter, right? Or being in rehearsal 3 days a week and seeing the growth, the A to B progression, right? That we were talking about. Like, how cool is it to see them interacting and collaborating and really taking care of each other, right? If someone's having a bad day, like, I've been in a couple of rehearsals, virtual rehearsals, where students are like, how are you? Are you okay? Like, what do you need? And I'm like, this world is going to be fine.
Yeah, I mean, Aaron, I think you hit that right on the head right there. I mean, we can be proud of shows that we do. We can be proud of classes that we lead. But at the end of the day, the thing that we're the most proud of is the students that come out of this program. I mean, that's just it. Nothing makes me happier. Nothing makes me prouder than looking at these students.
Yeah.
I could cry. Yeah, because it makes me think about not like our students, and then our students who become interns. And so, for me, I was thinking about the teaching internship that we often do in the summers, and to see young adults get that spark of, oh, I have an educator side to me. I can also give back and pay it forward. So we're like sparking other little legacies, and it's like, what?
Yeah, it's so mind-boggling. Like again, I can only speak on behalf of me, but like, having the opportunity to just like be a fly on the wall and those types of like aha moments happen. It's like, in the grind, right? We're just working. We're trying to, do classes, we're trying to do productions. But if you really get the chance to take a step back, you're like, ooh, look at all the work that is happening. The audience only sees the finished product, but we get the opportunity to see everything within that.
Yeah.
And like, that's a really, really cool thing. So to kind of summarize a little bit, this idea of like, legacy and, our impact, like, at the end of the day, lame is like this. At the end of the day, what is the legacy that you are hoping that you leave behind at KIDSTAGE? This is a big question, but like, what do you think that would be?
That is a big question. For no time left.
I know. It's okay. Kevin gave us the go-ahead to go a couple minutes over. So
I'll keep mine short and sweet, because I feel like I've said it over and over again, and I just feel like it's worth repeating.
Yeah.
It's that these students will go on and change the world. That is what I hope will happen, because this world is so great, but it has so much potential to be so much better.
Right.
And as we look at what we do with these students and how they grow and how they learn, I have faith that they will change the world for the better.
Yeah.
Right. And kind of similar, my hope for legacy is like I was talking about, changing the culture, shifting the culture, but specifically through this lens of telling other stories. And, you know, storytelling is so important. Every culture does it. And let's make sure that musical theater is not just telling the white story. And so changing the culture, shifting it. And I think what I have brought to KIDSTAGE and love to see it continue is just a lens of equity, right? Like everything that we do, considering who is in the room, what are the stories that we're telling that are either on purpose or not on purpose, based on who is in the room, or the Zoom, if you will. And so, like really equity. It's not just inclusion. It's like, that's what I want to come back to. It's not like we're opening our doors to other people. It's like, no, we have to change so that it feels more comfortable and that it feels like there's space to tell more stories. So that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, you hit it right on the nose. I realized like I didn't share like my hyphenates at the beginning, and that's one that I would identify as is like we are pursuers of equity, representation in every aspect of the work that we do, from the people who work with our students to the stories that we are telling to an audience, the new stories that we could be telling to audiences, and so on and so forth. It's like we want people to see themselves in this type of work. And the only way to do that is to change that from within, right?
Yep.
For me, it's all about, I think the legacy I would want to leave behind is that we didn't settle for the status quo. You know? Like we're able to kind of push the boundaries just enough to like let Katie Nickerson sweat a little bit. Like, oh my God, are we going to go over budget? But really it was worth it. You know, yes, we're going to fly people for Peter Pan and it's going to be amazing. You know, so but also the pushing the envelope in the stories that we tell. Like I keep going back to In the Heights, and I don't think there were definitely more days where I cried tears of sadness because I know that the show is going to be so amazing, because I'm just stressing about all of those small things to make sure that the experience that our students and our audiences can have is worth it. And that's really, really fun. And to kind of close us out, I kind of wanted to share these little nuggets, thinking about legacy a little bit. I asked a couple of your colleagues to give me some quotes about each of you, and you have to guess. You got one guess as to who said this quote. We're just for time's sake, we're going to do one.
A lot of pressure.
A lot of pressure. Okay, so it's not like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire where you get 4 chances. Okay, Joel, I'm going to start with you. Okay.
All right.
Okay, so this particular colleague says, with that Disney smile and caring attitude, Joel has been a true warrior to get things done at KIDSTAGE. I always feel like he cares about the job and projects and assists with joy and delight.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
This is also like affirmation time for the three of us, but you know, yeah. Like
I'm gonna feel terrible if I get this wrong.
I know. So no pressure.
Is that my illustrious boss, Susie Bixler?
It is not.
Oh.
It is frequent music director RJ Tansioko.
Oh, RJ. Oh. I would be RJ. I should have gone. I know he loves Disney just as much as I do, probably more.
I was texting him over the weekend, and he was like, "I hope Joel gets it because Disney is in this quote."
I should have. I missed the clue.
See, that's the legacy you get to leave behind. Like, and how cool is that?
Yeah.
That's gorgeous.
Okay, Mari Zingarelli, are you ready?
No. Yes.
Okay, your quote from one of your colleagues starts with, "OMG. I am so unbelievably thankful for my friendship with Mari. She has a heart of gold and radiates positive energy. I am also grateful for her commitment to her journey of being anti-racist and choosing to invest in our BIPOC students." That is quite the legacy there.
Is it my bestie, Aaron Norman?
It is Aaron Norman.
We raise each other up so much, it's not even funny. That is, oh my gosh, I need to screenshot that and keep it. I'm gonna put it on my phone screen so I can just
So if at any time you feel like you're down in the dumps, you can just look at that quote from Aaron Norman, and I'm like, I'm making an impact.
I know. He's also one of our fabulous music directors and music directed In the Heights. Oh, that's juicy.
Yep. Cool. Well, to last but certainly not least, we also give an opportunity to our guests to do some fun street shout outs and affiliations of like organizations, people, causes that you're really passionate about. This is the 2 minutes of fame for all of them. So, Mari, I'll turn to you first. Are there any organizations that you want to give a fun shout out to? And
yep, it's always just one. It's Young Women Empowered. I am a mentor there. I've been a lead facilitator. I've been a coordinator there. They are fabulous. They're a Seattle-based organization that works with women, young women, mostly young women of color. They work on creative projects, leadership projects. It is super, super fun. And they have a fundraiser on March 6th. So if you are feeling like I would love to either attend something super fun, you can find more information on their website. Or if you're thinking, I'd like to just donate to a cause that, I would say, how about KIDSTAGE and also Young Women Empowered?
There you go.
We'll take your donations. So that's fine.
Excellent. Mr. Arpin, how about you?
Absolutely. I got 3 quick ones I'd love to shout out. You'll notice a little bit of a theme, but I start out with Rock the Vote and their fight against censorship in America, specifically focusing right now on voter suppression and saving the USPS. Love Rock the Vote. Also a shout out to the Chris and Vicky Cornell Foundation. They've got a couple of things that they focus on, but specifically substance abuse and dependence. They work a lot with the International Rescue Committee, helping people whose lives have been affected by disasters. And then Child Haven, which is a place for babies, toddlers, and preschoolers dealing with childhood trauma treatment. And then the third organization I'd like to shout out to is the Vitology Project with Pearl Jam, specifically focusing on environment, homelessness, and indigenous and tribal causes around the globe.
That's awesome.
Beautiful.
Oh, I don't want to. It's like I don't want to share mine because I look up to both of you with like those organizations, and I'm like, here's some random ones that I have. They're not random.
Oh, yeah, right.
They're very, very dear and near to my heart. One of them I mentioned earlier is the Kamiak High School Drama Department. And the reason I share that is because my alma mater, I honestly do not think I would be in this phone call talking with all of you with a career in theater without my time in the Kamiak Drama Department and in the Performing Arts Department. Yeah. So they just do sensational work. They are one of the most robust performing arts programs at the high school level in our region. And they just kick Mondo butt. And I wouldn't be who I am without them. So that's one. A second one, also kind of within the Kamiak High School Network, is the Muscleteo Schools Foundation, which I'm part of the board of directors there. It's super fun. It's the organization that keeps on giving. The Schools Foundation is an affiliate of the school district, and they fund some key like programs like college and the high school and senior scholarships for graduating seniors, as well as teacher grants. And especially this year, we just actually wrapped up our teacher grants applications, and we've had over 100 faculty members and teachers from the district apply, which is like shatters all the records. And a lot of the teachers, they need financial support to purchase like virtual software for like, their curriculum and, like other, types of like books and materials. So that's what the foundation does, is in support of our teachers and our students in those regards. And the last one, I'm trying to remember what it is. Oh, it's Next Floor Entertainment. I got to throw in a movie reference in here somewhere. Surprise, I don't think I've told you either of this, that this is a film company, a production company that I co-founded in 2010. Next Floor Entertainment came from a student film that me and my fellow friends got to create for the Washington State Drama a yearly conference. They had a short film category, and we were like, oh sure, let's make a short film. And the film was called Next Floor. And so my very good friend Justin Vinal is he's taken this and ran with it, because I'm like, I am working in theater. I have no time to produce movies as much as I would want to, but they are a local production company based in Seattle. They do a lot of like horror stories and like psychological type of films. So think of like Get Out in a way. I'm not entirely sure what they're working on at the moment because of COVID, but they have been very robust over the last 10 years. So I'm had to give a fun shout out to them. So there you go. Awesome. Well, thank you, both of you, very, very much for joining me 10 minutes over. But for this really awesome conversation. It's been so wonderful just to have this rich conversation that isn't work related, but kind of is at the same time.
It's been nice.
Thank you, Aaron.
You're welcome.
And Mari, I mean, I love you both. I'm so happy to work with you both.
Yeah, same. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, I have to finish up and sign off. So Mari and Joel, thank you so much for joining us. So long, farewell, Auf Wiedersehen, adieu. And for all of you, thank you so much for joining us for tonight's episode of Spotlight, Sharing Stories, Creating Connections. Make sure, if you haven't already, to follow us on Facebook and YouTube, as well as to subscribe to Village Theater's newsletter, which is called Scene Change, to stay up to date with the latest and greatest things and content that we are creating in the virtual room where it happens. So again, on behalf of the Village Theater staff, thank you so much for joining us. I am Aaron Alonzo. It's been such a pleasure to be here tonight, and we will hopefully see you soon, either in the virtual room where it happens, but hopefully very soon in the real room where it happens. Have a great night, everyone. Take care.